Well, I'm from Illinois, so I was like, oh, it's so nice.
But you are also in a big jacket.
Chicago's like snowing again. So.
Yeah. I'm wearing my Cali sweater, so this is like all holy. I'm like, this is not it.
I have no jacket. That was a flaw.
How are you feeling though? Are you good?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm cold, but you know.
Yeah.
That keeps you awake.
Yeah. Right. That's true. Did anyone go to like GDC this week or anything?
What is it?
The game developer conference.
Yeah. That was like pretty crazy. Anyways, but I haven't slept well either, so if I'm tired, it's because of that. All right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go ahead and get started now. So my name is Karama Villius, and we're gonna be talking about what's the metaverse and how to join in as an AR/VR creator. A little bit about me. I've been at Meta for 3 years, formerly known as Oculus, formerly known as Facebook Reality Labs, formerly known as Facebook. I've been on the AI team when I first joined, and then I joined in January 2019. Then I was on Oculus for Business, helped launch the first solution for enterprise to be able to enable VR at scale, as well as on the AR/VR social experiences. If you've ever used a Quest, then if you've ever traveled together with somebody or used public parties, those were the products that I launched on that, as well as spent the last year, most of 2020 and 21, building tools for developers because I have a VR developer background. I'm a published VR developer as well. So that was probably my favorite time period at the company, getting to build Oculus Developer Hub. So if you ever are developing for Oculus, definitely use that tool. It'll make your life easier. But now I'm on the VR camera team. So anything you do with taking a photo, casting, taking video on the Quest, or on, if you have older headsets like the Rift and stuff, or the Go, as well as mixed reality capture, my team owns that. So if you have any questions around that, I'm happy to like share some insights and we're in the direction we're headed in because it's not private on our end. And Shen is my partner, but yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Shen, but my full name is Shanika. I'm actually, this is a abbreviated version of my title, but I'm a customer insights content producer at Meta Reality Labs. I started about 2 years ago, and I sit on the customer support operations team. So basically anytime you have trouble with your, for example, VR headset, which is our Quest 2, I'll produce video content on how to troubleshoot your issue. So if you can't turn it on, I'll make a video on how to guide you through that process. I analyze a lot of our customer support data to see what are some of our top issues coming in. So whenever you guys submit a ticket on our website and you're having issues with either your VR headset or another device that we have is Portal, which is our augmented reality device, those get funneled in through my team, whether you submit a ticket or you make a phone call with an issue. And so my team looks at that ticket data, and that's how I produce content to help users. So I'm a last minute add to this. So I know Chloe has a lot of content that she's going to talk about today, but I'll chime in a little bit later to talk about my journey and also how I got into creating video content for the Metaverse. So here you go, Chloe.
Do you want to also just drive it yourself?
Yeah. And I just want to say, I'm so glad that she was able to actually join last minute because she has a really interesting background. She comes in from a non-technical side, and I feel like for anyone who's identifies with that particular journey, she can definitely speak to her story on that. And I come from the self-taught, the technical side, so I'm happy to speak on that later in Q&A. We met because we worked together. I did Oculus for Developer video series. If you go on YouTube to the Oculus page, we have some videos that we created just for developers, and she helped produce all of that. And it was just really a magical moment. That's why I'm really excited to be here, and I hope to see more women of color in VR because as we were putting together the production, I was like trying to debate, like, should I put earrings on? Like, are we gonna be talking to developers? Like, I was like already thinking about how to make myself more palatable to the majority white male audience. And she's like, no girl, wear your earrings, wear your lipstick, it's all good. And I was like, if that had been anybody else, they'd probably be like, yeah, cut it. But so I just feel like just having people that, really support your authentic self and bringing that to work, I think is something that we all definitely want to see more of and feel more of, to feel psychologically safe. With that said, how many people here have tried VR or already, like, raise your hand if you tried VR? Only 3? And did you guys try the Quest or something different?
Yeah, it was the Oculus one. I think the name of it.
Okay.
Oculus
Okay.
That's what I kind of
Okay, was that a long time ago? Like how long
Yeah.
ago was it?
like 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Okay.
3 years.
Okay. I do have my Oculus Quest here today, but I don't know with the Wi-Fi. It's been kind of weird. But if you guys want to try it after, I'm happy to do that. And I have sanitizer as well. So, with that said, but can I ask some like high level? What makes you guys interested in the metaverse or like and being potentially AR VR creator? Are you guys here just like learn or? Okay. Just
upscale.
let's go. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So that's. I just want to know who my audience is. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm eating breakfast, but I'm a trademark attorney, and in that world, in meta, crypto, Bitcoin,
Yeah.
intellectual property rights are really, really being hard fought over, and it's very new in that area. So I was just really excited about learning about, what you all do, so I can get some insight on how I can utilize my legal team to best support you.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, cool, sweet. All right. So with that said, I'll make sure we have at least 10 minutes to go over any questions. So agenda again, the first few half of this presentation is going to be talking about the many different definitions of the metaverse, what I think it actually is, and how to conceptualize it. At least this is what's worked for me. As well as like how to try your own entry points if you're looking at coming in but you don't know where to start. We have some ideas for like how to do that and like different paths, and then we'll share a little bit of our stories, and then we'll leave it open for Q&A. So if you've seen metaverse in the media and how it's been depicted, it's usually through the Western lens. It's depicted as a dystopian, zero-sum scarcity type of mindset framing. For example, Ready Player One, if you've seen that. So I'm just going to kind of talk about what it is likely not from my perspective, and I think from a rational sense. If you think about virtual reality, has anyone here seen Ready Player One? Okay, so the book is much better than the movie if you haven't read the book. But I think this particular way of just is, I feel like, highly unlikely. If you think about what it takes to run VR, even in the future, it requires Wi-Fi, like really strong Wi-Fi. It requires heavy computing and demand on the technology to enable a solid, good graphic. It requires electricity. And if you think about the majority of countries who are living in developing nations and don't have access to that, which is likened probably to a dystopian environment. If this was an accurate likelihood or even a possible direction, you'd see it flourishing there. And that's not the case. So it's the same way we can't imagine that. Like, I think this is kind of already dispels the oxymoronic future, and I think that's why it's entertaining. It's such a to think like, and it's also frames it as an escape, like it's going to replace the physical world. I think as humans, there's just certain instincts that we're just never going to let go of, and physical is one of them. So I actually think it's more of we're going to add layers to our physical world in ways that we are currently doing today, but we're not going to ever like live in one versus others unless you have mental health issues probably. Like if you think of like gamers and stuff like that, it's very, very few. But so let's go ahead and dispel Ready Player One. That's not it. This is not a picture of the Matrix, but pretend it is, because we did this last minute. The reason why Matrix, as much as it's my favorite movie, and the reason why I love it, I think it does a good job of sharing like virtual reality in terms of a concept, but in reality, that it requires you to be unconscious in order to experience the virtual simulation, and you're able to socially connect with other people as you're both unconscious. So really, I don't think that makes sense. That's not what the metaverse is. You're not going to be unconscious when you're exploring it. But I think Matrix actually does a better job of showing what it's like for, have you guys heard of reality switching? Like on TikTok? It was a huge TikTok trend where it was, you can tell yourself cognitively as you're about to fall asleep, I want to experience the Harry Potter world, or I want to see what my ex is doing right now in time. And it's like this real psychological phenomenon that it's actually true, I guess, for some people, where they can set that intention before they fall asleep. And when they're in the halfway state, their spirit leaves their body and actually goes in real time to see what the other people are doing or experiences of another lifetime, and they can interact with other people. So it's an interesting, I'm not going to go into details there, you can Google it, but it is a real phenomenon, and I think Matrix really highlights more of a reality switching model than it really does virtual reality or metaverse. And also virtual reality, this is another thing that it's not. That's going to be like almost oxymoronic, but also from what I'm saying. Virtual reality is going to be, I think, the best way to access the metaverse in terms of full embodiment, if you want to have full immersion in experience. But I think it's going to serve best for certain use cases like workplace and education and all that, where you need focus, but it's not going to be the only way you can access a universe. Again, when you think about a global population accessing this technology, you think about like the internet today. we're accessing the internet on multiple different types of devices. The PC or the laptop might be the most best way to do it, to do full inclusive things like, doing your taxes, doing documents, all that. It's not ideal to do on the phone or maybe even on an iPod. There's just some things like editing or creating stuff. So I think virtual reality plays a more comprehensive role in terms of accessing the metaverse when you need to have full functionality and mobility and portability is not a huge priority. I think virtual reality is going to be the best way to access it, not necessarily the only way or the only way you can, as it's talked about a lot. So with that said, what is the metaverse? So Merriam-Webster describes it as generally the concept of a highly immersive virtual world where people gather to socialize, play, and work. This may be true. I think, again, when you're looking at the reason why a lot of people are confused about what is the metaverse, why it's still such an abstract concept, it's really, we're at the stage where it's kind of like the internet is just being boomed. People are talking about URLs and all of that, but we didn't know really what it was going to be and what the type of solutions we're going to produce. But we can all guess, right? We know it's going to be the big thing, but we don't know what exactly it's going to do. So think of the metaverse in that way. It's going to enable a lot of new functionality. But I think if you think about, have anyone heard the 3 blind men and the elephant fable? I don't know, I'm talking really fast, but since we've heard it a little time. So this is a fable. I think it's Buddhist, or it could be, I think it originally comes from India, but it's mostly reference to Buddhism, where it's a saying where a king had like his wisest counsel, and he asked them about like God or the religion or something like that. And all the different wise counsels, they all had a different perspective, and they were starting to fight and bicker with each other about what actually life is or what actually God is. And so he was getting really frustrated and annoyed by them, and because they started battling with each other at one point, that he went out and got somebody to go get blind men from the town and told them to come to his room. And so they came, they got like 6 blind men or whatever, and they put an elephant in the middle of the room. Then they told the blind man to touch and to describe to them what an elephant is. So each blind man was like touching a different part of the elephant, and one of them was like, oh, an elephant is a long and thin like a rod. Another person was touching the tail and saying, no, it's like a brush, it's like, hairy and stringy. Another one was touching the bottom of the elephant, it's like, no, it's round and thick and rough, whatever, wrinkly. And then they started fighting with each other. And I think that's kind of where we're in the stage right now, where everybody's saying, this is what the metaverse is, and this is what it's gonna be. And I think it would be, I would advise not to completely hold on to that, but to see it as like, oh, that's another way of looking at it. Metaverse is gonna be a huger concept than anything we've ever experienced. And so I think it is beyond human understanding and ability to predict. While we can start to see like maybe what's 1 foot and 2 feet in front of us, which what we're seeing in terms of emerging tech now, we don't really see the bigger picture. So I think if you're like still learning, the more perspectives you hear, the more you probably will have a better idea of what it is, but just think of it as that. So I personally, this is my personal perspective with that caveat, I do think the metaverse is more like, if anyone has seen the Free Guy movie, has anyone seen it? Okay, if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. I think it's on Disney Plus if you're interested in what another possible metaverse future it looks like. But basically, I think it's going to be a hardware that you can, I think it's going to be a virtual layer on top of the real world that you can access in and out, either by a lot of different devices, but it's something that you can have the option to access. It's not something that's going to be all-encompassing, but if I need access to a unique type of service that's only offered virtually, or if I want to communicate with somebody who's not in the physical space, I can be able to put on my headset, or the same way that I can put on a phone and access this virtual world in real time and overlaid onto my physical world. And I think that's kind of where the excitement is. So it's like the blending. We already operate in the digital world, we already operate in the physical world, but we don't have like a fluid way of going between one another, and you have to, I think it's going to be more expansive and ubiquitous. So if you think about the concept of emerging tech, only a few years ago, emerging tech was all of these different technologies that didn't have a common thread with each other. You think of drones, you think of like 360 cameras, you think of IoT, Internet of Things. These were all like pricklings or seeds that we didn't really have like a common vision for. And I think what the metaverse does is that it tells us, it kind of gives us like a common vision of how all of these products will work together in terms of this larger ecosystem. And so I think that's really exciting. I don't know if like 2 years ago, there was a lot of debate over like, what do we call the VR industry? XR, AR, MR, and there's all these new ways of, blending virtual and reality. And so now Metaverse helps like kind of solidify that and adds more of a vision to it versus just emerging tech, which doesn't really tie it all together. So I think that's one interesting plus from the term. But again, however you'd like to define it for yourself is open. If you think about so with that said, Metaverse is, I also don't think it's going to be anything new. I think we're already operating in the Metaverse today. We just don't have a material layer to visualize it and access it, again, ubiquitously. So if you think about the fundamental building blocks of society, these are just a few examples. It's not exhaustive, but some key ideas. We think about identity and how we express ourselves, and that's usually through clothes, makeup, hairstyles, like how we show the world who we are and how we show up in life. We think about currency, which is right now physical money that's physically located to a country. Like if I go to another country with my money, it will be valueless. I'd have to switch it out and the value changes. So it has a lot of limitations geographically. Also, if you think about communication, back in the day, pre-internet, we were using phones, radios, letters, which had its own limitations in terms of when something can be sent, when somebody can receive a message, what we said as a result of that, the barriers to sending and receiving messages. Phones, you have to go to a location in order to talk to someone or receive a call or get information. So basically all the tools that enabled our society to work had a lot of physical restraints to it, and that limited the way we're able to interact with each other. So you think about the internet. What is the internet today? Internet is how we represent ourselves is profile photos, cover art, and our content, what we say, what we think, what we share. Those are all the ways that we express ourselves on the internet. We think of currency, there's now a digital representation for our money. So nowadays, I don't remember the last time I even used cash, but it's all just moving money around different apps or different banks, online banking. So digitally, I'm not really using physical money anymore, and I'm sure that's very common for most people here, at least in Silicon Valley. You think of how we communicate. Now we can instantly send thoughts to each other or words or communicate by email. When you think about the one-to-many use case, social media now enables us to speak to a lot of millions of people regardless of geography, unlike the radio did. The radio is very localized. Video calls, we can now use the computing to be able to visually show up and speak to each other. So communications have improved because we were able to express more of ourselves in a more easier, accessible way. And these are some other examples. If you think about goods and services, they've now been scaled thanks to AI bots and services like Ubers and all that, where they took care of having the physical restraint of not being next to a taxi. You can now access one and connect with one, and they can be at your address in 5 minutes if you're lucky and live in San Francisco. It's LA, it's 15, 20. So how does it be liken this to the metaverse? So again, we can only see 2 feet in front of us, and so this is what's emerging in terms of all these different ways that our needs in terms of the humans in order to represent ourselves. You think of avatars, so for Fortnite, Roblox. In this digital world, we have a digital representation of us, and so avatars are that digital representation. It's a lot of debate whether we want it high fidelity, super hyper realistic, all that. Assets are, let's say if I'm in Fortnite, I can't dance, right, with my buttons, but I can buy assets that enable my character to dance, or I can buy t-shirts or clothing for my avatar and representing to myself. So assets are those things that you can use on a platform or in a game that you can buy that enhance your experience, whether it's your avatar or ways that you want to express yourself in your home environment or whatever that looks like. Currency, cryptocurrency is a way that's going to enable the money is the same value no matter where you are in the world. You can move it anywhere in the world. It's now managed by technology versus banks and digital wallets, which might be owned by companies, which might be owned by communities themselves, similar to credit unions are today. And that might have trade-offs to using it, where it's certain values or beliefs are the defining characteristics of money holding, and blockchain technology is just, again, very public, open records that are less likely to be corrupted by government officials who go rogue or all of that. So there's trade-offs of that, right? There's also communication. We have social VR spaces, holograms, VC, being able to communicate regardless of being physically present or even having to show yourself. If you don't want to wake up and do makeup, you can use your avatar to represent you in a conversation. So there's all these different ways that I think Metaverse is going to, what we're seeing today, start to serve as improving the way that we communicate or interact with each other via Metaverse technology that are amplifying in terms of its opportunities. NFTs, virtual reality apps are all the ways that we'll experience services or goods and art, as well as AR. Embodied courses, now you don't have to, like, if a school can only limit to 10,000 people on their campus, they can now be made available via social embodied VR, and you can still have that same social interaction and learning, and actually even more access to immersive data that can support more types of learning, like experiential learning and field trips. There's a great startup by called Kai XR. It's a Black woman, her name's Kai Fraser, and she creates VR virtual reality field trips and brings them to low-income elementary schools, so kids can go and experience different sites, Washington D.C., Martin Luther King statue, all of that they wouldn't be able to otherwise because they can't afford it. So there's a lot of like really cool opportunities that it's bringing to our society and that are emerging today. So if you want to take a picture of this, it's kind of like how I see the parallels of where Metaverse is taking what we have today and to a more ubiquitous, highly accessible, and more embodied solutions. Yeah,
So is the Metaverse Web3? Like, how are we identifying?
So Web3, so again, it's like the elephant thing. Web3, I think, is for people who are seeing it more from the economic lens. Like, I think of it as digital currency. Like, that is like the defining trait to them about this internet and how it's going to improve their life or how they move things. So I think when people are saying Web3, they're specifically referring to the technologies related to currency. Metaverse, I think, is like more, because it's been kind of amplified now by Meta, I think that is usually more associated with the social landscape that we think it's going to improve on, as well as there's spatial web, which is probably like a more neutral way of thinking, like we're just going to be able to visit websites like we visit spaces, leveraging different platforms. So opportunities and risk. We're going to get great, like all technology, there's going to be an improvement in the good side, and there's also going to be extreme amplification of the shadow side. Bias is real. You also see like things because of anonymity. You'll see an increase in scams, which we're already seeing on social media today. And because we're going to be using blockchain technology, we could be accessed by a password. If somebody scams you, there's no one to hold accountable your money. You lose your personal loss, it will be high. You can lose it forever and have no way of, having enforced to get your situation back. At least not today. Also, like tribal power. So you think of like the way pre-internet, a lot of communities like white supremacists, they were kind of silenced over time because they were separated and they no longer became the majority and they were very like dispersed. But thanks to the internet, they now can find each other. So this is great for people who are ostracized and marginalized and are looking for people that they connect with, that they can empathize with. But also, marginalized voices are also people who have been bad actors or have thoughts that can harm society. And now they can find each other and have more power and move tribally, or like governments and politics and having public narrative conversations ways that probably were dispelled pre-internet. And so it's going to be more amplified. They can now meet in person and all of that. Global community, the positive sides, we are going to have a lot more economic opportunities. You think about when people were like, now with the rise of technology, we're not going to be able to, we're going to lose our jobs. Like, I don't know if you remember that narrative. Again, scarcity mindset, usually offered from the Western perspective. Zero-sum game, all that. In actuality, I don't know anybody who doesn't have only one job. I don't know, like most people I know have like 2 different jobs, gigs, all of that. There's so many more ways to make money. There's more people around the world that have now been able to have businesses and empower themselves using services like WhatsApp and all of that in ways that they may not have been able to before when they couldn't afford renting a building, a physical building, and all of that. There's a lot of freelancing, all of that. So we can now, economic opportunities will be amplified, and we will be a global community where international success is more important than local success if you're talking about becoming a unicorn or billionaire. You think about the elements of the technology and what are the defining characteristics today. AR, MR, VR, again, are the different concepts, the primary concepts of how we access this virtual world or relate in our real world. And they talk about their relationship with that. I'm not going to go into the details, assuming everyone knows this, or I can deep dive in the Q&A. If we have more. We also talk about hardware. Hardware is how you're going to access all of these ways that we communicate or receive information and all that. So, or sell and buy. You think about VR headsets, AR glasses, smartwatches. that make it more easy to access really quickly, and eventually even AMGs, Facebook, what was formerly Facebook Reality Labs, Meta Reality Labs. I think his name is Michael Abrash, talked about they're working on a technology where it's kind of like a bracelet that can read your brain signals and then anticipate what you need. So imagine being in VR and having some device that's a wearable that's able to interpret your brain signals into intention and then poof, bring you a coffee or a latte. I mean, actually, it could be in real life, in real life, because I have an intention, I want coffee, or it knows it's at 8 o'clock, and it sees the brain signal of me wanting coffee. Maybe an ad pops up or something, or a person currency pops up for me to approve, and then in 5 minutes, somebody arrives to my door with that coffee because the machine knew what that signal interpreted in my brain. So that's a very, very possible future that companies are actively working on today. And the main thing to know about this platform, different from anything else, I guess, is interoperability is the defining key trait for the metaverse. So when you hear anybody say, oh, we're building a metaverse, that's equivalent of saying we're building the internet. Nobody can build, internet is one thing that encompasses many different websites. Metaverse is one thing that encompasses many different worlds and spatial places and all that. So just take that as a red flag whenever somebody's selling you a metaverse. Nobody's even Meta, we're not building a metaverse even though we call ourselves Meta, but we are very much acknowledge that we are building a world that capitalizes on our value proposition to people in terms of being able to socially connect, and we want to be a platform that helps enable that and deliver that value as we have on the 2D platform scale. So yeah, and that basically means in any place you go, you should have access to any other destination or app. Similar to going to a mall, you can go to many different stores right next to each other. It should be, or even in the real world, physical location shouldn't be an issue when it comes to moving to different places in the metaverse. Yeah, we're good. So if you're thinking about an entry point or where you want to start your path, there's different kind of cues that we can give you. So if you're someone who likes to build, or if you like to create, or if you like collecting things, you like to socialize, network, play, if you're a business entrepreneur, if you're a teacher, learn, those are your kind of things that give you joy, or you kind of have that idea or sense of what you like to do. These are the different starting points that I personally recommend. So for example, if you like building things, I think XR app development, where it's AR, VR, all of that is really fun to try out right now. It does require a lot. It might be expensive to start up, but the building is very rewarding if you have that instinct. As well as creating NFTs, creating content on social media, leveraging augmented reality and all of that is definitely things that you can look at right now. Or creating in Horizon worlds. You can go into certain VR apps where you can paint with fire and paint with stars and digital animated things that you couldn't do in the real world. So I would explore different apps that allowed you to create creatively without physical restraints and explore that. If you like collecting things, definitely look at NFTs and assets and that you can start to collect. If you're socializing or networking, definitely look at social VR groups or going to social VR spaces, meeting people, throwing events in Outspace or all that, which is accessible to anybody as long as you create an account. You can create VR spaces, and anyone who happens to be on the app at that time, you might be able to advertise it online as well, can join you, and you can meet people from all different around the world that maybe you wouldn't have throwing an event in your local neighborhood. Playing, if you like playing, so many games, Fortnite, Roblox, VR games as well. Zenith VR is a really popular MMO on VR, as well as also co-founded by a Black woman. I'd highly recommend checking it out. I think they just raised $35 million, which is really cool, but it's planned to be the next Fortnite for VR. If you like business, entrepreneurial stuff, selling assets, even NFTs and all of that stuff, making businesses or creating an app that will provide a business in VR or AR and MR, are all different options. If you love teaching and learning, definitely try training apps in VR, get some inspiration, and see any concepts that you'd like to teach, especially if it's most afforded to people who learn experiencing it first, more so than being told or lectured to. Those are great ways to act out that trait. So with that said, so this is a little bit about my path. I'm gonna go ahead and skip myself right now, and I'm gonna let Shen talk, because I feel like I've just kind of vomited all over you guys. But Shen, I think we both have, like I said, 2 different journeys, and so I'll let her speak on what it looked like coming in from a non-technical side.
Thank you, Chloe. That was great. So I know we're going to try to leave time for Q&A, so it's about 10:40 right now, so I'll try to run through this as fast as I can. So I started off having a love for film. My dad, I'm going to age myself here, but my dad would take my sister and I to Blockbuster every Friday after school, and we got to pick out 3 of our favorite movies to watch for the weekend. And then also every Saturday morning, he would take us to the movie theaters. And so I just had this love for film, and at the same time, this is something that Chloe brought up earlier, how did you also fall in love with tech? We had an IBM at home, Windows 95, that I would just play with. And so it's just this weird journey that it's been where I've intertwined film and tech together. In high school, I went to a boarding school in Alabama School of Math and Science. So I was just around folks making robots and just coding. And I would also film my friends on campus and make short stories and films. I actually went to women's college, Agnes Scott College. Have y'all heard of that? It's in Decatur, Georgia. It's also a private liberal arts women's college. And it was small enough to where I was on a lot of cultural boards, activity boards, and one of them was our BSU called Wakazi. So I would film promotional events and our events just to continue my love for film since I was an English major. And so I also had internships throughout Atlanta where I would edit videos. But I still wanted to be a part of tech. And so when I graduated in 2012, left college, we were still kind of coming off the recession, so the job market was terrible. And I saw this show, Startup Silicon Valley, and just wanted to be out in California. I came out here to get my master's in computer science. Didn't stay in that long, but I ended up getting a job at a startup doing sales. At the time, I hated it. I was not a salesperson, but I was in tech, working at this small startup in Mountain View. They later got acquired by SAP. The marketing director came up to me and asked, "Hey, I saw on your LinkedIn you make videos. Can you make us a product video?" And I did. And from there, I did sales half-time, selling our software, and then doing our product videos. And then eventually moved full-time doing product videos. Fast forward 3 companies later, I'm now at Meta, creating our content for all of our Reality Lab hardware products. And that includes our Oculus headset, which is now called Quest 2, VR headset, but then also our augmented reality devices like Portal. Have you guys heard of Portal before? It's basically like a FaceTime device. I don't really know how else I would describe it.
But it's cool. It has a smart camera, so it follows you around. You can basically join voice conversations or video calls, and you can multitask. You can go around the living room, and the camera will follow you, and it knows exactly how to zoom in and whatever, and you look good in it too.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like an Amazon Echo almost. That's how the hardware looks like. The great thing about working and just being in tech, when I first started, it was a very white male dominated. We didn't have emphasis on diversity. And Chloe can probably speak more on that too. So my first job, I was interviewed by all white males, and that was like just the most intimidating thing because I had never worked in tech before, and it was just like I felt like I was very grilled. And just being the only Black woman on our sales team was also just something to navigate. But now I'm in this position and working at Meta, where we're able to bring folks in the room that also represent us. This is actually a picture of me and our associate content producer that I recently hired, and just having that presence and being able to not only represent behind the scenes, but also we casted, actually there were a couple. It was a Black woman and her husband to be the star in our video, and just having that power to do that, to bring folks in the room that aren't usually represented, has been really encouraging. So, yeah. that being said, I'll pass it back to you, Chloe.
Yeah,
Talk
thank
about
you.
your journey.
And by the way, I caveat. No, I'm not gonna. I'll skip mine for now. But I'll caveat too that like
When I say non-technical, I mean non-coding specifically. So obviously your job's technical. So as she was like finagling all the AV stuff. Yeah. So regardless of that, I can tell my story later in Q&A if it's interesting for people who have a self-taught interest. I have to share that later. But how to jump in? I think the biggest takeaway is remember Metaverse is very hype right now, so there's a lot of people talking about it, and it might generate a sense of FOMO because it's a lot of hype. And usually when there's a lot of talking, there's not much walking. So I would say if you're feeling anxious, at least that's a lot of people I talk to are already feeling like I'm already missing out. Like it's a myth that's not real. We have plenty of time. As you see with the internet, people are still successful joining the internet 30 years later, 20 years later, since it's been created. We're at the nascent beginning. Take your time, explore with peace, and make sure you really understand your why, so you're not ending up in a job just for the sake of being in the metaverse and you end up hating it and you waste all your time learning all these things that don't really matter to you. So I would say before you jump into the metaverse, again, we're already living in it today. What do you like doing today? What is your why today? If you already know that, like great. If you don't know what your why is and you're still exploring, go ahead and explore and start with where you feel the most curious. I think that was like a Steve Jobs kind of talk. Like I think that was on point. That was my journey a bit. Like I was curious about this, even though it was really random, and that ended up leading into this and to this. So like following your joy kind of leads you to your passion. I personally believe. And once you start to get an idea of what you're passionate about, then make sure you know you like doing the day-to-day regarding it. If you're going to be doing it for 8 hours a day for the rest of your life, or 24 hours a day if you're self-employed. Making sure you like, go back one more time. So doing internships to make sure, or trying things out, all that kind of stuff in a low level investment way can help you understand, okay, I like doing this every day, and you'll find that that's the path to take, I think. Okay, you can go to the next one. So the last tips, check your motivations, take your time and explore. The metaverse will be here for a while, or it'll die a year later and you wouldn't have wasted that much time. Don't buy into the FOMO hype. Most things will fail, and a lot of people are bullshitting right now, a lot of people. So don't, even Meta, who believes in the metaverse, we are still very much aware that we don't know what that will be. We just know, we can only see 1 feet in front, and we think it's a good enough signal to invest the whole company in that direction. And we do have a vision, but it could easily be knocked out by what the global population actually wants, similar to anything. You think about MySpace when it came in, that was very ephemeral. You think about Fortnite, even now, I don't know if that's still as popular as it was before. New inventions happen all the time. The technology is evolving, the platform's evolving. Just keep that in mind. Don't worry about missing out. Just take your time.
I will say one more thing too. We had a mentorship program at Meta for students at FSU, and one of the students that I spoke to one-on-one, she thought in order to be in STEM or just to be in the tech space, you had to learn how to code, and that was always a huge misconception to me too. As I thought in order to be in tech, I had to learn how to code. And that's not the case, right? I'm a video producer, content creator, right? You can also be a writer. You can also, she loved architecture, and I was like, oh my God, we have horizons where people are literally building houses and designing them inside of our VR headset. There's so many opportunities out there to be a part of this, and it doesn't necessarily require coding.
Yeah, or a tech background.
Or a tech background, yeah.
If you wanted to offer legal services, companies.
She left, because I was going to actually speak on that for legal, right? We actually need legal. Every time we make a video on our new headset that comes out, we actually have to add a disclaimer, don't run into the wall or
make sure we're not stealing other people's property or
there's so many departments outside of just being in tech. And again, even writing is powerful. Think about when you put on any new headset or go on any app, there's language in there. So
and how do you translate? A lot of people don't know
exactly
what certain things to do, functionality is. So as actors, it's actually very challenging and challenging if you love writing, because then you can figure out, okay, what is the right way to express what this will do in a way that's palatable to everyone, inclusive to a global audience. It's really, really fun challenges if that's the trait that you like doing.
Localization.
Yeah.
That's something that we run into too, is localizing our content. If you have a language that you speak and you're able to contribute to that, that's a whole department at Meta.
Yeah.
Now is a localization team. They translate everything.
Anyway, so I think that's pretty much our talk. Yeah, thank you again for coming. And do you guys want to? We'll leave the floor open to questions.
Yeah,
if you
Q&A.
have.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm from the Central Valley, Modesto, like area. Technology's like not that big there yet, but it's getting there. And we work with like a lot of kids that have never even had phones or, like, so does Meta provide like scholarships to like get VR headsets and stuff for communities like that?
So today we don't really have our education space is not like our core investment today.
Mm-hmm.
We are a gaming platform right now, and we're interested in becoming a computer specialized kind of computer. So as a result, we're thinking about it from enabling technology more than we are thinking about use cases today. We are very much not there yet. Now, with that said, there are a lot of passionate people who care about these things and have the ability to put on programs that support different initiatives that are out in the community. So like, I think right now the most lucrative way is sponsoring events. I think Meta will sponsor events that are in alignment with things that they value, like definitely kids and learning and tech. There's also programs for developers, so called Oculus Start. Oculus Start is the biggest developer program that we support. You sign up, you say this is what I plan to build, and blah, 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 and they will, there's an acceptance program, and again, I think it's more so judging the likelihood that you are actually going to develop, because they are going to invest in you. So they will send you, once you get accepted to that program, they will send you hardware. They'll send you the latest hardware devices for free and some like cool swag. They'll also put you into a Discord where they have dedicated Oculus people to support or answer any questions. Or the community is also filled with thousands of other developers that love helping each other out, and you get more actually interesting support there from the community members and networking as well. And they also do, they'll give you tickets to events and fly you to whatever, give you hotel rooms for conferences and all of that when that comes back up. So Oculus Start is that program. If you're a developer and you want to, that's an intro way. Second is Oculus Launchpad. This is specifically dedicated to underrepresented developers. They've taken 100 developers of underrepresented backgrounds a year, and you do apply. That one's a little bit harder or competitive to get into, but again, as long as you show real interest and they can see like, okay, this person has an interesting idea, you pitch them as if you're an actual developer pitching. They'll bring you in, put you in a 2-day boot camp. I do think there's an age limit, and I think it's only for US and North America today. And then you have 3 months, you'll work with their personal consultants, like Oculus people will support, or Meta people will support on a regular basis, and like you have a one-on-one connection and a mentor internally that will help you in your project. You also meet other developers that you can co-build with, or designers and all of that. And then at the end, you submit a build, and then they take the top 10 or however many that year and publish it on the platform. And they give you funding to publish on the platform, which I was in 2017. I did a bias testing for teachers that I literally did not think Oculus would want to even touch. And I submitted it for the Oculus Rift touch controllers and sent the prototype, and then found out 2 months later that they were going to give me $50,000 to put on the platform. So that was changed my life. But programs like that are, I think, what makes Meta really unique in the VR company space right now. Yeah.
Are there other opportunities to learn XR development aside from applying to a program at Oculus Start?
Yeah, Unity has a great XR development courses. Yeah, Unreal, if you're really big about shaders and technical design, Unreal is probably the better place you want to start with. But they also offer online courses, especially if you're developing for the Oculus Quest. Oh God! One day I'm gonna get it. Quest and like they partnered with us to like put together a program, or like an online course that you can view for free. Also YouTube. That's how I learned to do VR.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
YouTube. I mean, I learned how to edit videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
I was an English major in college, and I spent hours on YouTube.
Yeah, I would argue say it was even faster on YouTube. I just
Yeah.
Googled how to make a VR experience, and there was like a 7-minute, how to make your first VR game in 7 minutes, and it was just like an easy, comprehensive flow. So I would, YouTube University is, I think, ideal
Yeah.
for me.
And it's free.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
I'm an English major too.
I know.
Oh, cool, yeah. That's good.
And I will say, having the English background, when we produce content, for scripting, comes in handy. Yeah.
It's C# is the primary language, I think, for leveraging Unity. Unreal is C++. If you're a beginner, start with C++ and you've never coded before. C++ is the easiest language to learn. So even if you do a C# course on YouTube, you'll already be set up for success on Unity. Object-oriented programming is what makes developing for VR different from developing websites. So OOP, I think this is object-oriented programming, C#, Google, 2 words. If you don't want to necessarily restrict yourself to VR, are also things to Google for courses.
Yeah, because there's also like the augmented reality space too for stuff.
Yeah.
I think augmented reality is probably less of a learning curve than virtual reality because it's still interfacing like everyday objects.
I will say it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So the
VR
only
is
difference is the
good
export
on.
model. Yeah. So like you would think that, right? I feel
Yeah.
like it is, and there are tools that actually make AR a lot easier than VR. Like if you think about if you're exporting to Snapchat, so she's right in that sense. Like if you're exporting to Snapchat, Instagram filters, there's tools that streamline the flow. Like here's the face, you just need to put pictures and impose it, and then boom, you export. But a lot of that's transferable to VR. The VR development process is the same thing. You have a space, you put your objects in, you decorate them with materials, you put animations in. The only difference is the exporting flow. So now I'm going to export it to both to a hardware spatialized device. So how I test it and make sure that the code is working is going to look different than when I'm doing it in AR, but the creation process in and of itself is the same. So Unity, if you use Unity 3D, that's great for augmented reality as well. But there are better tools that make it easier if you're just thinking about AR for MR. MR does add VR elements to the development process, but
Cool.
yeah.
I think one of my questions is like, going back to your point about like people bullshitting, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm buying like real estate or space on like Metaverse, and like I just want to understand like what is the logic or like the end goal like from a business perspective from doing that.
I would equate it to buying your URL. You're buying a domain's name. Maybe you can sell it if Meta wants to change their name to whatever URL is in the future. You can make money that way, but that exists today. You can buy URLs and hope that somebody wants to create something with your name, but usually just people will hyphen it or adjust it accordingly. And that's how I think about selling real estate. It's like there's no space in Metaverse. It's
infinite.
It's infinite. So
I will say, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but like for Horizon Worlds, we do have. So I used to work with this. He's now an interactive designer at Toyota Institute, and he was one of the first who got into Horizons and built games. And Facebook gave him a grant for that. I don't know if that's the same thing as real estate,
No.
but just like early people just going into these apps and doing.
those are free
Yeah.
apps that you
Doing
can create
things
your own
there.
world and you can get paid out. So yeah, they're basically exploiting ignorance. People who are bought into the hype, like, oh, Metaverse, oh, I'm gonna sell you real estate. So they're just capitalizing on the ignorance and the people who are feeling FOMO, and that's how it's just scam again.
That's helpful. I mean, I think another, just like a follow-up, like, 'cause I think one thing that I also come across a lot is like there's so many different types of cryptocurrency. So it's like, how can you really differentiate like what's real and what's scam? Or do y'all have any tips on that?
You wanna talk about that? Or
Disclaimer, I'm not a crypto expert, but when you think about crypto, it's not really regulated yet.
Yeah.
So that regulation is going to happen at some point. You have interest from the SEC for certain types of crypto. So like you have Ethereum, Bitcoin, like those have, it's not being politicized where like they're driving certain coins up compared to others. At some point, the financial systems are going to evolve. I think China actually just came up with their own type of crypto. We're going to probably see more of that happening with ISO 2020 coming out, where they're going to change. Have you guys heard of Swift banking?
Yeah.
So they're going to change.
I think it's going. I think a lot of people should know.
It's basically how you make international payments. And
Banks
so
is a code.
it's like bank coding. So they're gonna at some point update how that works. Crypto may play into that, and certain cryptos will be selected to be a part of that. So we don't know yet, but the regulation is coming soon, probably end of this year or early next year.
Yeah, think about it. I would liken it as investing in stock. You don't know what the outcome's gonna be.
It's always a risk.
Yeah, it's always a risk, but obviously there's certain institutional backing that can ensure success. So like Bitcoin being like highly invested in the most and probably has a lot of corporate backing to some degree is likely going to be a good investment or not. But at the end of the day, it's not a proven market yet. So just know like any type of stock, and it's a lot more riskier, but that means it's also a lot potentially more gains. So I would just think of it as investing in stock. No one really knows, but there's like certain indicators that can like, I'm willing to take a risk here just because it seems strong enough. And if you're in that place where it's like, I'm willing to lose $10,000, I'm willing to do whatever, then definitely have fun with it. But I wouldn't recommend, I mean, if you want to, but I'm also not a cryptocurrency expert, so this is more of an observational opinion.
That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we did good. Right on time then. No one have any questions? Yeah. Also, Meta is hiring, so I should put our contact information.
Didn't put that on there, but.
We don't have any dry erase boards, but I'm on Twitter.
That one's
the
dry
markers.
erase board. We don't have any markers.
Yeah. It's our dry erase marker.
Here, I'll just type it in our
Oh, here,
PowerPoint
yeah.
real quick. Got it?
Yeah.
I was just gonna do this.
Okay. On Twitter. Twitter is probably the best way to connect with you.
Feel free to email me. I'm open to that. Flo, did you want to put your email address?
Yeah. I would LinkedIn is better because I never check my email.
Okay.
But my name, I'll come up. I'm the only one named Karama Dorvilius, so on LinkedIn.
Same. I'm probably the only Shanaika.
On LinkedIn.
I'm just ever. I actually have never met somebody who had my name.
And Twitter. And you want to do?
Yeah, I just put it
Oh,
on my
perfect.
box right here.
That's nice.
Oh wait, that wasn't updated. Oh yeah.
Actually, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how like earlier in the presentation you were mentioning like how a lot of this is framed in like the Western like view of what's going on. So do you feel like outside of like North America there's like a lot more?
Yes, definitely. So I did a research trip through work. We went to Ghana and South Africa and Brazil. And the way they're looking at digital cryptocurrency, it's like this is the thing that's going to save, like blockchain and all of that is going to save them. Again, they lived in countries where it's a little bit more, they can't trust their government. And there are people who are losing land to lost records and government claiming the land. There's a lot of that. So when I was there, the fervor of smaller communities who had access, like in college and or had access, more privileged access to the hardware and all of that, they that Afro tech, or I wouldn't say African, I would say basically the African market or the African tech scene is really, really exciting. Really, I'm like plugged into a lot of them on Twitter, so all my Twitter spaces are always African people talking about NFTs and exchanging NFTs, digital currency, crypto, but to purchase, like all that kind of stuff. And I feel like the energy behind there, it's really exciting, more so than what you hear in the Western world, where it's more like, we don't want this company to take over and da-da-da. Like there, it's just like, it's very much like possibilities and a lot of community networking around it. Nigeria, there's a lot of places, people who I know who've been to Nigeria to their startup ecosystem, they feel like what's being worked on there is more exciting than what's being worked on in Silicon Valley. So again, they're thinking about it from a practical lens. They already have the problems, they have very clear problems to solve, and they see the solutions there. They're under-resourced though. They're not getting that's changing, slowly changing. Investments are starting to look there. Stripe did a huge $1 billion investment in a startup in, I think it was in Ghana or Nigeria, that's working on payments. Meta is also with their wallet, Nova. Like most of our markets we're focused on are in those countries and Brazil, like Latin American countries, just because clear problem and a lot more excitement over usage around it. So yeah, it's definitely different. If you can follow, if you follow me on Twitter and just DM me, I can send you a whole bunch of names to follow, and then you can start to participate in those Twitter conversations. So yeah, Clubhouse and stuff.
Thank you. We'll clear the room for the other speakers, but thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.